Well, it looks like the jurors have agreed with the conspiracy theorists, prosecutors in the Sam Bankman-Fried trial and found him guilty of conspiracy. And that's all right. I think the jurors made the correct decision. And the prosecutors also were correct in charging SBF with conspiracy, which makes those prosecutors conspiracy theorists. But there's nothing wrong with being a conspiracy theorist. I, myself, am a conspiracy theorist, and I'm proud to be one. So I'm making this video not as a criticism of the prosecutors or the jury, but rather just the opposite. I want to normalize the activity of theorizing about conspiracies, which would make one that does such an activity a conspiracy theorist. So you need to go into what is a conspiracy. Now, a conspiracy is merely a shared plot between two or more people that is being kept deliberately secret for reasons other than just normal reasons of privacy or trade secrets, things like reasons like that. That's just a basic definition. It's overly simplistic, yes, but we're just going to get the basic definition there. So why is that? Well, that would be. But I'm contending that all conspiracies are inherently theoretical. So and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't talk. I don't know necessarily what the difference is between a criminal conspiracy and non-criminal conspiracy in the eyes of the law. I'm sure there's conspiracies that are perfectly legal. I'm sure, but I'm just going with the general definition of conspiracy. Now, that criminal conspiracy, you see, that's just one specific type of conspiracy. But regardless, I'm contending that all conspiracies are inherently theoretical. Now, so then, in order to do that, we have to go into discussing what is a theory, what makes something theoretical, and it is just, as a basic definition there, is anything that is not tangible by the senses, the five senses, which are, I believe, taste, touch, smell. What many I got here? Oh, taste, touch, hearing, smell, and sight. I think that's all five. So, now conspiracy, if that's a shared plot in the minds of two or more people, it's being deliberately kept secret for the given reasons that So, now that's what the minds. It has to be a shared plot in the minds of two or more people. That's the important point there. So, can we use our senses to detect a shared plot in the minds shared between two or more people? I would say not. We cannot read minds. Like we would say, even if there's one person that says, "Oh yeah, I have this in mind," but that one person cannot use their senses to detect what's going on in the minds of the other person that they're alleged to be sharing a plot with. So even for them, that's still a theory that there's a conspiracy going on. So we said, given that we cannot read minds with our senses, therefore, it is theoretical. Now, I think the word theory derives from the word ether and ethereal. So he exists out there in the ether that cannot be sensed with our senses. So therefore, and since we cannot detect with our senses a shared plot, then a conspiracy therefore is inherently theoretical. The shared plot exists out there in the ether. We'll never be able to detect it with our senses. So, like in the SBF trial, or there's been very many. It's very common for financial fraud cases to result in conspiracy charges. So it's very common for prosecutors to be conspiracy theorists, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, because very often I agree that very often conspiracies do happen, especially in cases of financial fraud, criminal financial fraud. So why did it ever get this notion that conspiracy theories, why did it ever get this air of being a pejorative? Well, I believe the origin goes back to the JFK assassination investigation. When Allen Dulles, he was a former head of the CIA, and then he was fired by JFK. Then after the assassination, who was tapped to join the small team investigating the JFK assassination? Well, none other than Allen Dulles. So people started raising questions. Oh, isn't that a conflict of interest there? Because Dulles, he was fired by the guy who's now being part of the one that's investigating the murder of the guy who fired him. So isn't that that's a conflict of interest, isn't it? People like raising that. And so what did the CIA do? They started to spread this meme that people who were raising that question about that conflict of interest, the CIA was the ones calling them, oh, those are just a bunch of conspiracy theorists. They're just, they're fringe nuts. It was like a psychological operations to spread the meme, the idea that these people were fringe nuts who were raising these questions about Dulles being part of the investigation into the JFK assassination. But of course, those are legitimate questions. They're basically saying, why is the fox being part of the investigation into the chicken burglaries in the chicken coop, which is, of course, a legitimate question. Because Fox has a motive. Had a motive to steal the chickens, and Dulles would have a motive to murder JFK because Dulles was fired by JFK. It's a legitimate question, but the CIA and their psychological operations try to create the meme that raising such questions is a pejorative, and you create an air within we are social creatures. If we don't want to have a label placed on us in the social community, we're trying to be pillars of the community, keep up our image, our social image. We don't want to have this air of being a fringe nut, so we try to avoid that label. We don't want that label. We don't want people to think we're a bunch of these strange fringe nuts, be conspiracy theorists. So we avoid those of us who want to, maintain our status as pillars of the community and are upstanding members, have good image, social image. We're social creatures. We want to keep up our reputation, so we don't raise those questions, which is what the goal of CIA is pursuing in the first place. Which it's kind of ironic because they've basically succeeded. So even independent journalists are they distance themselves from trying to avoid having that label placed on themselves. They say, well, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact, as though there's some difference there. Well, it's a conspiracy theory about a matter such as, say, the JFK assassination. Well, that's still that there's a conflict of interest that Dulles was put in there to subvert the investigation. That's conspiracy theory, and I believe it's a factual one. I believe it's factual true. That's my factual judgment. So there are basically two types of judgments. There are factual judgments, and there are normative value judgments. Those are the two different basic types of judgments. And so, like a conspiracy theory is typically going to be a factual judgment. So if you believe it's true, well, it's still a conspiracy fact and conspiracy theory, same thing. Like a normative judgment. I should mention that's basically saying any judgment that something is good or bad, something ought to happen, should happen. You see those words: should, ought, good, bad. Those are all normative judgments. Now, but when you're talking about a conspiracy theory, typically that's just going to be you could say first just say, well, is it true or not? It's basically, it's a factual judgment. It's still a factual judgment. It's still a conspiracy fact. Can still be a conspiracy theory. And then when when the jurors came to the conclusion that SBF is guilty, they made a judgment that he's guilty of conspiracy. So they made a factual judgment that a conspiracy happened. And well, like for instance, in the sentencing phase, then there might be normative judgments to determine how long a sentence he gets. But in the original trial, whether he's guilty or not guilty, that's basically a factual judgment. So the jurors concluded it was a conspiracy fact that the theory that he's committed conspiracy is true. So it's still a conspiracy fact, and it's a conspiracy theory. Same thing. But yeah, even independent journalists, they try to distance themselves. So they could, ironically, even though these independent journalists and commentators, they're very against the CIA and the deep state. They're playing into the hands of the CIA when these independent journalists distance themselves from being labeled conspiracy theorists. So what they should do instead is embrace the idea of being a conspiracy theorist, because whenever there any investigation of corruption at any level, whether it's in a corporation or government or between government and corporation, inevitably, if you're going to find any kind of some sort of corruption, you're going to come across conspiracies. Because it's just whenever you have two or more people with a shared plot it's being deliberately kept secret for reasons other than personal privacy or trade secrets, then you have a conspiracy. So it may or may not be criminal, but either way, you're going to come across conspiracies, but they're always going to be theoretical, because you cannot read minds. You cannot read the minds of those people you're investigating. So it's always going to be a theoretical belief that a conspiracy is happening. So you're a conspiracy theorist, and that's okay, because you're investigating corruption, which is a noble endeavor. It's a noble thing to do. So we should the best way to fight against the deep state and their corruption is to not play along with them with their mind games. They're playing mind games with you when they're and you're going along with it when you try to distance yourself from these labels. When you try to distance yourself from these labels as a pejorative, which the CIA created that pejorative label that goes along with the term conspiracy theorist. the pejorative property of the label conspiracy theorist, I should say. Those prosecutors, they're conspiracy theorists, and that's okay. That's good. I mean, generally it's a good thing to be a conspiracy theorist. So I believe the jurors made the right decision, and I hope, but they don't. The mainstream media and everybody else, they're just going to go back to treating conspiracy theorists as a pejorative, and they'll make the invalid logical argument of, if it's a conspiracy, therefore false, which of course is a completely invalid logical argument, but people still go along with it. And so I'm going to just keep on pointing that out. That's invalid logical. That's invalid logic. And so eventually, I think the truth will come out. We hope. So that I just want to make that point. And I guess that's all I have to say for now. And if you're still watching, thanks for watching.